Hey there, welcome to the Roving Sounds radio show, the podcast dedicated to researching, recording and sharing traditional music from all around the world. My name is Ashley de Neef. Today we're doing something a little bit different. Roving Sounds is sponsoring a very exciting project involving myself and musicians from Africa, America and Europe. In this series of mini episodes, we'll be talking about the project and covering its progress along the way. In this episode in particular, we're going to talk a lot about the general concept of the project, as well as introducing some of the people who are involved and how this whole thing kind of came together. In order to do that, we've got to really go back before Roving Sounds existed. So this episode is really going to give a lot of context to everything that comes later. And of course, we'll be playing some musical examples along the way. As always, there's more great stuff on the website, and our previous podcast episode about Gnawa music from Morocco is now up, with some amazing videos and extra information to check out. So go to www.rovingsounds.org for more information. If you're listening to this, you're probably aware to some extent what Roving Sounds is all about. World music, different cultures, and learning as much as possible, right? But you may not know that I myself am a professional musician currently living in London. I studied jazz music in Australia, and I was pretty blasé about world music until I took this life-changing trip to West Africa with a drumming tour group. I travelled through Ghana and Burkina Faso, and I met local musicians, studied their music, and generally tried to immerse myself in the cultures as I went. Having studied music originally in a university back in Australia, I was totally blown away with the different approach and conceptualisation of music out there. Wherever we went, people played music as a celebration, for fun and community spirit, and as an expression of cultural identity. I just finished my final music exams at the time, and for the 3 years prior, I had this weird association of music with stress and practice, and to an extent, academia. I think one of the big things that separates the music taught in institutions and the music that I heard in Africa is that the musicians in Africa had some sort of ownership over their music. It's part of their culture and part of their identity, and it has been for as long as they can remember. So they kind of embrace that and express themselves freely. This is in comparison to me as a 20-year-old white middle-class guy from Australia learning about jazz music and kind of trying to establish a connection with something that's never mine to begin with. So it kind of became an academic pursuit, something that I would think about and obsess over, but not something that I really had a deep connection with, not like the people I saw in Africa with their music. I became really interested in that connection and how it affects the way people listen to and perform music. So I started Roving Sounds, first of all as a chance to share the recordings from that amazing first trip in Africa, and secondly as a place to share my research into traditional music and the people who play it. The trip really changed the way I think about music and life as a whole, and I became obsessed with African instruments and sounds. When I got back to Australia, I started writing some music for jazz quartet with a thumb piano. So I'm giving you this background information because in a few weeks I'll be going into the studio to record an album of this African-inspired jazz music with friends from all around the world. It'll feature myself, an Australian, an American, an Italian, a Croatian, and most interestingly, some amazing musicians from Burkina Faso, who I studied with on that initial trip. These guys are crucial to making the album work, and I'm really excited to hear how these two musical worlds will combine in the project. I'm going to play you a track now, which will be included on the album, but in a slightly different form. This track is what pushed me to think about making this album, and it should give you a general idea of the vibe of the project. So how is this all relevant to Roving Sounds? Well, if you've been following Roving Sounds for a while, you may remember the name Burkina Azza, which is a traditional music group from the West African country of Burkina Faso. I've written about them before, maybe a year ago I think, and these musicians are absolutely incredible. They're from way up north in Burkina Faso, near the border with Mali, and they play their own original music, which is based on the traditional music of French West Africa. They're all part of a big extended family, many are brothers, cousins, etc., and they all come from griot families. If you don't remember from last time, a griot is a person who has a special position in West African society. They are the keepers of history, the cultural advisors, the storytellers, and the master musicians. Griot is a title, a role, and an obligation that's passed down through griot families, and children learn the songs, stories, and histories of the regions and their people from a very young age. Griots are paid by donations from patrons and perform at ceremonies, including weddings and funerals. They are in a way privileged because the community recognises their work and supports them so they can keep making their art and serving the people. I think it'd be pretty great if all societies treated their musicians like this. Griots train in their instruments as children and learn all the different aspects and parts of the music. They are masters in every sense, and common instruments they play include djembes, koras, which is a type of African harp, balafons, which is like a marimba, and gonjis, which are one-string instruments. One interesting thing is that there are many differences in the skills between a griot musician and a Western musician. And we're going to talk about that a lot later because some of the challenges that come up in this project are going to be due to those different abilities. Right now, we're going to hear a track from Burkina Azza, the band of griots, and I recorded this whilst I was in Burkina Faso, the country. I think maybe by listening to this track and remembering the sample of music I played before, you can get a sense of how the two sounds could work together. Have a listen. Not only are Burkina Azza really incredible musicians, but they're also fantastic performers as well. I've uploaded a video to the website of them doing their thing, and you can get a sense of their showmanship and flair. In writing the music for this project, I've been trying to incorporate not only the instruments and sounds of Burkina Azza's music, but also some of the rhythms, structures, and harmony, and I've been encountering quite a few challenges along the way. I'll be going into it in a lot more depth in the next episode of this mini-series. If you want to stay up to date with the project, hear more stories, and see some videos of the whole process, then don't forget to join the Roving Sounds mailing list, as I'll be sending out content regularly. If you enjoyed this mini episode, then why not leave us a comment on Facebook and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. Also, send me an email. I really like hearing from listeners. You can do that by emailing info@rovingsounds.org. I'll be back really soon for the next album update. See you then.